Hello and welcome to Dialogue. I'm Li Qiuyuan in Beijing. This week, Chinese President Xi Jinping attended a symposium on cybersecurity and informatization as the country's 700 million internet users have been discussing social governance and public events. Well, the president suggests the government should take constructive advice from netizens and calls for a positive, healthy cyber culture. So what roles should the government and mainstream media play following the rise of the new media? And how can the internet play a role in alleviating social contradictions and promote consensus? And how should one manage online content and users' behavior for a clean and healthy cyberspace? To discuss these questions and more, I'm happy to be joined in the studio by Professor Shi Yanbin from the School of Journalism and Communication at Tsinghua University, and also Joanne Cheng, an intercultural filmmaker and critic. But before we get started, let's take a look at this.
China's new development concepts, innovation, coordination, green development, opening up, and sharing, which will be used to guide the socio-economic development, should also be implemented when driving the Internet's development forward. That's one of the key messages from President Xi Jinping, who also heads China's Central Internet Security and Informatization Leading Group. During a work forum on Tuesday, Xi spent time listening to the opinions and suggestions of Internet experts, entrepreneurs, and officials. He then said China has seen rapid development of the Internet. He added that while great achievements have been made in Internet security and informatization, there are still many problems left to be solved. Xi said China's economy is entering the development phase of new normal, which requires new impetus. The Internet, which attracts more than 700 million Chinese users, can play an important role in this. He stressed that the development of the Internet should be woven into the real economy, so that the flow of information will also drive the flow of technology, capital, talent, and goods. This would help optimize resource allocation. To achieve that goal, the Chinese president said the development of the Internet and informatization should be people-oriented and aim for major technological breakthroughs. He said the cyberspace should be purified, since it has become an important cultural platform for millions of Chinese. He also noted that cybersecurity and informatization are intertwined, and that development and security should be promoted hand in hand. The president encouraged skilled personnel to also make their own contribution to China's Internet development and informatization.
All right, let's talk about this. Joanne, first, how do you view the background of the president's speech on Tuesday?
Well, I'm very excited to hear that President Xi Jinping is giving out a signal that maybe the dawn of China's democracy has finally come.
Really? What do you think, Mr. Xu?
I think this is actually the first, I would call it summit on internet, because it used to be the internet was considered as a second tier, even third tier issue in Chinese social stratum. But now it's like the president and also this kind of summit gather all the internet, the entrepreneur and also scholars to talk about the importance of internet. So this really means the internet already play a pivoting role and actually a very critical function in Chinese society.
Yeah, you can't deny that the Chinese internet is still one of the world's most vibrant social network cyberspace, economic cyberspace. I mean, we have over 700 million internet users. That's almost twice as much as the entire population of the United States. And back to your earlier comments, do you want to elaborate on that?
Sure, I would like to think the cyberspace is an open space. It is a space that's both public and private. Public for its nature of sharing, private for its nature of allowing you to be anonymous, that we would like to think so. So this is a very place that we have to keep it safe, clean, free from pollution. Most importantly, to be safe is the paramount issue here, I
So
think.
how do you think of China's internet today in terms of its culture, its relationship between government officialdom and ordinary people's opinion?
I think domestically, like I just said, the internet already play a kind of bridge between, I would say, the administration and also the public opinion. But globally, now I think Chinese internet company also play a very important role. Now, among the top 10 internet companies, 6 from the United States, far from China. So this kind of what we call the China-America co-governance of cyberspace has already become a reality. So globally, domestically, internet already loom large as a very important issue.
It's really growing into a size that's amazing, but in a relatively short period of time. And the government is trying to get a hang of how to manage this growth. Now, the president also stressed the role of internet in directing and representing public opinion. But how do you think that the internet's role in supervising government work, because that's already in progress here in the country?
I think it's quite encouraging that the government is actually encouraging the public opinions through internet. It seems to me it is issuing a green light for netizens to express themselves
anonymously, and that is a sort of thing that's pushing for this growth of public opinion.
Yes, this is also the first time ever that President Xi actually urged, actually I would say demand, the government official must be internet friendly, and also it must be internet surfer. It used to be we call it we call digital native and digital immigrant, and I would say internet was considered as a youngsters media in China. But now I think President Xi also think government official the mandate to use internet as a governing tool. I would call it as a governing with internet, not just internet governance, but governing with internet.
Governing with internet, but there are also critics saying that government officials have failed to reach public opinion online, influence opinions online. What do you say to those statements?
I would say this is a kind of old-fashioned way because, like I said, someone claimed that the only internet was a kind of youngsters media. It represents those people who are actually loser in mainstream society. But now I think President Xi actually validate internet is a very important source of public opinion, particularly because all media in China are state-owned. So in this case, that internet was a very important channel for the public to actually convey the opinion to the administrators.
But think about it, the fact is the average age of Chinese internet user is relatively young compared to Western countries. I think if my memory serves me right, it's about 25 years old or so compared to if you see in the United States, the average age is probably about 40 or 45. So there's a huge difference between internet population among China and Western developed countries.
So in this case, we would call this the so-called angry young man phenomenon. Usually young people more tend to show their kind of disappointment and anguish via internet compared with the parent generation.
Right.
So this is also a very important thing, that how the government should channel the public emotion.
Right, and with the explosion of social media, lots of people can become internet sensation online. We've got this Papi Zhang, a popular internet case, pretty recently. She took internet by storm, but her use of swear words and assaulting language also got some criticism from the government.
I think for a female to, present her voice on the internet should be very much celebrated, although she is not taking it in a very clean, kosher way. But I think female voice need to be cultivated on the internet. It is a very important platform for female to really express themselves socially, culturally. It is a very important force that the government should be encouraging, I think, but maybe not her particular way.
But what's really behind this? He's growing in popularity. Why all of a sudden in such short period of time she can grab such amount of popularity?
I would think this is a kind of mythology of internet. On the surface, internet belongs to everybody. But still we kind of see a kind of pyramid structure of internet. I would say 90% of the internet citizens or netizens actually convey those kind of opinion conveyed by that 10%. The 10% is still called opinion leader. Like Papi Zhang would be a definite example for opinion leader on the internet among a certain kind of population, like young people, especially those losers in society.
As opinion leader, do you think that she, has the responsibility to be a role model in some way? Is that what you mean by opinion leaders? Or
I think she could be free as who she wants to be. She doesn't have to be a role model, but I think she's enjoying her popularity. I think this is a new phenomenon for a private citizen to become someone overnight. It's just a social freedom that anyone can enjoy through internet. But I often wonder how free you can actually be, and I wonder whether it is safe or secure, and whether the internet it is a place where you can truly express yourself, and it is a place where danger might be confronted. I think we should confront some issues here.
Another issue here is that there's a distrust between government, official media, and the public. It is reported that the mistrust already generated, but how can we fill the gap? Are you optimistic that the situation will, get better after the president's speech?
I would say this is also what we call the internet thinking. This is also a concept that President Xi actually expressed a year early, that we should use the internet thinking to revitalize the mainstream media and also change the relationship between official and the public. Because a lot of officials still tend to use a very mainstream ideology, mainstream way of communication to convey their ideas to public. But actually, internet would be characterized by what we call infotainment. Back to the earlier point, like Papi Jiang, I think Papi Jiang would be a very good example of infotainment. Not only you have that kind of information, opinion that he actually incarnated with a very entertaining way. So this is, I think, what President Xi want to change the way of communication with the public, particularly because Chinese Communist Party has a tradition of so-called mass the mass road or mass baseline, that you should actually use the mass language, not the official language or official rhetoric, to communicate with the public.
Yeah, it is quite encouraging I like your wording of infotainment, because I just come back from the film market here, film festival, and we have a lot of internet expressions through films, a lot of like film made for the internet. So it is internet and the best time for the internet, prosperity of voices through art, through media. I think this finally, it seems to be a new era has been coming.
And that phenomenon, I think, would be more prominent here in China, because most of the internet users here in China, they have very distinctive habit. They use internet to entertain, to watch videos, to kill their time. Most of the users' habits are very different from, users elsewhere who use it to learn and to cultivate public opinions.
Yeah, that is a problem. We have this great fire war here that we couldn't really go over to see the real wild west, right? So we have the censorship here. That is something quite limiting. I wonder whether President Xi Jinping would also deal with that issue.
The president also said that China must improve the management of China's cyberspace to ensure high quality content. What do you think the future direction in that sense?
But usually we have the idea of the firewall. So the firewall gives us an image that usually the Chinese official only use the way of what we call blocking information, or certain kind of called harmful information. But at this point, I think President Xi also stressed that the government official not only should kind of surveillance information, but also you must have your own opinion to direct the public opinion. So government official not only play a role of the administrator of internet or serve a watchdog of the internet, but also you should be a communicator by yourself. You should use internet to try to effectively communicate with the public. So this is a kind of role that you change the government officials' role in terms of internet governance.
And in terms of governments, the State Administration of Press, Publication, Radio, and Film and Television said the move against Papi Jiang, we just mentioned, filed reports of the public and expert evaluations who should be responsible for the supervisions of people's improper behaviors and unhealthy contents on the internet. Who should be responsible for that?
In this opinion, I would say, again, the way of governing the internet, I think is still a new idea proposed by President Xi. But so far as I have observed, like you talk about so-called censorship, I think it's still kind of way that we use a lot of measure to try to blocking or try to forbidding information, but rather we did not provide enough kind of active, I would say, guideline. For example, you should publish a very clear guideline, like in the United States, what kind of word you should in the prime time television. You have very strict code of conduct and code of speech, but this is still lacking in today's China. So that's why President Xi also emphasized the importance of the cyber law. I would say in the next 5 years, cyber law will become an issue in China.
But in terms of who should be responsible of filtering the right information, I think it should be industry specific. I think if it's an entertainment...
You mean the service providers?
I think if you're providing a film, I think it should be the film administration. If you're providing a piece of medicine, it should be the pharmaceutical company. I think the industry-specific professional guideline or law should be, should be governed.
Yes,
Yeah.
this is exactly happening in film industry. By the end of this year, I think there is a new law called Film Industry Promotion Law. This is actually the first law concerned with media ever appeared in PRC. So this is, I think, already an indicator. So I would say next would be cyber law. So this is a kind of legal governance rather than a kind of administration will be mainstream in the future.
Right.
I
Very
think before
interesting
we make
discussion.
many laws, and I think we should enjoy certain freedom
All
of
right.
getting to know the other side of the firewall before we put in even more restrictions. Would you agree with me?
Hold your thoughts. We're going to continue that discussion. Let's take a short break. We'll come back and talk more about the cyber law and cybersecurity. Stay with us. Welcome back. Let's continue our discussion on China's internet with my guest Joanna and Mr. Xu. So before the break, Mr. Xu mentioned China is about to roll out the cyber law. What kind of content would you predict it would have, and what kind of emphasis it would have?
I think so far we only have some bottom line. Like I think the most famous bottom line in China is we have the 7 not to do. I think it's regulated by our state information office. So this is still a kind of regulation, or it's a kind of, I would say, a passive regulation. But the active regulation should be actually played by law. So this is exactly what happened in film industry. Like I mentioned, internet industry was kind of China American governance. And in film industry, the same, because China now will become the largest film market, I think as late as next year, as early as this year.
Yes, next year,
So
yeah.
this is exactly why film and the internet should be the sphere that we should promote this kind of law. And this law, legal abidance would be important than the kind of government administration.
I think it's more specifically regarding to a rating system. That would be very helpful in terms of helping Chinese film going, I mean, international.
I agree.
Yeah.
And before the break, you also mentioned that you think that internet and the film industry in China are the most marketized, most free market kind of operation going on here in China. Speaking to regulating internet content, cyber law, what do you think that it's lacking here in China?
I still feel we should enjoy total freedom before we put in a lot of laws.
Well, we have the more liberal
maybe
view here.
maybe the two the equilibrium should be carried out in such a way that it goes on simultaneously, because we cannot see China goes from self-isolation before 1970s all of a sudden coming into self-indulgence. There should be in between self-liberation. The self-liberation is a process of liberating yourself, your ideas, your thoughts in such a way that integrating with the world. I think we still need to do that. China as a name, it is the center of the world. Now it is becoming the even more center of the world. But you really need to stretch out to learn from the other part of the world, because the very nature of the internet is a global family. Global family members need to learn from each other, right? That's the very nature. Now we're not relating by blood, but we're relating by ideas. But ideas has to be shared. How do we share it? Through internet. This is our new frontier. I'm going to go there as a warrior and go catch other people's ideas, but I need to be free.
What do you make of what's being said? Do you agree with Joanne's
I think this is a
opinion?
kind of Western model. First you have a kind of absolute freedom, and then you have regulation, or so-called you have law. But China has a very specific situation. I always call China is different from the United States or other Western countries. We're a kind of duality role. We are a developing, developed country. So in this sense, we need, like you said, equilibrium between legal guidance and also a kind of freedom. I think this happened at the same time. And also, I think for the very first time, President Xi mentioned internet surveillance. I think this is also very important for us to understand, because it used to call that the internet actually play a very important role for a surveillance society. I mean, especially for the surveillance, the power elite, or surveillance, the official. So this is also a very important aspect we should stress in this speech.
And last year, China closed almost 5,000 so-called illegal websites, over 2 million illegal accounts. What do you think the significance of that is?
This is obviously, I think, is again equilibrium. So what I would say, China is again a dual role. The kind of I would say the freedom and also responsibility must be balanced. This is what I would foresee in a new cyber law, that we should have this equilibrium. But on the other hand, we would also emphasize one thing, is that you have this kind of big market, and the law would be the basically universal language. So in this speech, President Xi also guarantee that the foreign internet company, if they want to come to China, they have to abide by law. So what exactly law? It's not the government regulation or a kind of a random so-called censorship. It should be a law. So that's exactly why law is a universal language. As you said that we should learn from each other, we should have a law.
Okay, well, you're talking about law, I'm talking about media prosperity that I think that calls for integration between the traditional media with the new media. I think there should be thriving on the internet before we're putting them down even more severely. I think we really should emphasize on a new freedom that we should enjoy. I think President Xi Jinping is really encouraging the netizen, including the traditional officials working in the government, participate in this new revolution. I think the very spirit of his speech is encouraging a new freedom, right? Versus just the law. I think the law should follow up at the same time, but without sacrificing the freedom that's desperately needed.
So that's exactly why President Xi emphasized internet surveillance. So you have the internet surveillance, of course, then you have the legal guidance. This is happening at the same time.
Let's move on to cybersecurity here, another very important topic when it comes to China's internet. What are some of the sort of achievements that has already been made in this area?
Like I said, I would say the cybersecurity is an issue. Particularly, this is not an issue for a developed country like the United States. I think they are they have this authority called ICANN. They actually assign all the website. Notice all the website name, we have .com, .org, but if you come to China, we have .cn. If you come to Canada, you have .ca, but there is no for .us. So US is actually the final sayers of internet governance. So now because China now increased as a kind of competitor or potential competitor, like I just said, 6 versus 4, we call it GAFA versus BET. So this is kind of co-governance China-America. So cybersecurity will emerge an issue in this kind of global governance of internet, not just US-dominated governance. So this is a very important time for us to have other forces negotiating with US to have this real global governance, not one country dominance of internet.
But I would like to ask, what are we protecting? The security is protection against something. I think we need to define what's actually at the risk here. If we may talk about cyber crime and cyber theft or cyber pollution, and I think these issues, maybe we can discuss that a little bit so that we can understand the security issue at its hardcore.
So a clearer definition of what that cybersecurity consists. I believe that some reports or some studies on this, they define it as several layers of cybersecurity. There are cybercrime, cyber theft, and there are also cyber espionage. What do you think of this?
So this is again, I think the United States will advocate a so-called internet freedom. It's actually advocated by Hillary Clinton in 2010. So this idea actually was a kind of idea that did not actually protect the national interest of developing countries, because developing country was at the weaker end of this global spectrum of the internet. So that's why China would advocate a kind of idea called internet sovereignty. Internet sovereignty would, of course, try to protect those countries with simply weaker technology situation and also skills, and also their national security and national sovereignty must also be secure. But I would say national sovereignty actually kind of accepted in recent years, particularly the rise of ISIS. More Americans actually accept the idea of internet sovereignty because this actually really harmed U.S. national security. And also Snowden scandal would be another example. So I would say last year President Xi offered another idea, I think it's a more better sounding than national security. Is called common destiny community. So the community of human destiny. This is probably actually indicate that's why we have different communities, we have our own interests, but still we need to negotiate a kind of global governance of internet rather than a one country dominance.
You also touched upon another important topic, which is cyber terrorism. When you look at the spread of ISIS now, is that prevalent here in China? Cyber terrorism, is it under watch?
I think China and the U.S. are all the victim of cyber terrorism. So that's why I would call it as a global governance. This kind of totally absolute internet freedom encourage the kind of striving of ISIS. So that's why I think now U.S. and other Western countries also realize there is some kind of a limit of this internet freedom.
Well, now come to think of it, I think we are having an even more dangerous living right now, because in the past we can hide in our comfort zone of our own physical home. Right now we're presenting ourselves on the surface, you are anonymous, but I think we're being watched somehow. And I all of a sudden feel, wow, we're not safe. I mean, what do we do about that? Do you think the government would actually protect the individual's identity? I mean, on one level, when you express a personal opinion, they can crack you down. But how about my personal information, my credit cards, and or my political beliefs?
Right.
And I think now it's more dangerous than before.
Yeah,
Would you
in the
believe
age of
that?
internet, it's very easy to get a sense that your privacy is getting violated. So, final remarks on prospect of Chinese internet. What do you think the future holds for China's internet, and what would you probably hoping,
I'm
the
very much
direction
for
it's
the
developing?
internet democracy and internet freedom. And I think China is entering a major important era of setting people free. And I hope the freedom will be truly executed by the individual.
Go ahead.
Yes.
I also advocate internet freedom, but that must be under the aegis of law. I think this is exactly what President Xi wants to convey to the rest of the world, that China is already on the legal track of the so-called universal language, that we could actually communicate with the rest of the world under this legal language.
All right, we do have a little bit of extra time. What other comments do you have on China's internet?
Well, China's internet is, if it is a new kingdom. To me, it's like a candy bar. But I feel certain compartment of that store is hidden from me, so it's mysterious to me. So I would like to go explore. Give me more freedom. I want to explore further.
Okay, but on the other hand, I think one thing we did not have time to elaborate today is actually the business side of internet. Because I think cyberspace really provides a lot of business opportunities for those living in interior China. For example, in those in the mountain village or in a small town, they use Alibaba as a very vital and prospering platform to make money. So internet also serves the people. So I would say yesterday's speech, the key message that President Xi will convey is internet must serve the people.
All right, thank you
Great
for
progress.
joining me here, Joanna and Mr. Xu, for talking on this topic. Thank you for watching our dialogue tonight. We'll hope to see you next time. Bye.